Welcome back to 7th Cut Recaps. Today, we're diving into Shutter Island, a psychological thriller that'll mess with your mind at every turn. Nothing is what it seems, and by the end, you won't know what's real anymore. Spoilers ahead. The story begins in Boston, 1954. A man named Teddy Daniels, a U.S. Marshal, is traveling by sea alongside his new partner, Chuck All. The waves crash violently against the boat as Teddy reveals a painful truth. His wife had died in an apartment fire. They're heading to a remote mental institution for the criminally insane, Ashcliffe Hospital on Shutter Island, to investigate the disappearance of a patient called Rachel. When they arrive, the mood is heavy. The deputy warden greets them, while the guards' suspicious eyes follow their every move. On the drive to the facility, the warden explains that the hospital is divided into 3 wards, A, B, and C. Ward C, he warns, holds the most dangerous inmates and is completely off limits. Before entering, they're forced to surrender their firearms, something Teddy doesn't take lightly. At exactly 8:53 a.m., they finally meet Dr. Cawley, the chief psychiatrist. On their way in, they pass a few unsettling patients. Inside, Dr. Cawley insists his goal is to help the patients, to cure them, or at least give them some peace. Teddy immediately asks about the missing patient, Rachel Solando. Cawley explains that Rachel drowned her 3 children, set their bodies on the dining table, and calmly ate dinner afterward. As Cawley speaks, Teddy suddenly feels dizzy. A flashback hits him where he saw corpses frozen in snow while he was in war. The doctor continues explaining that Rachel is completely delusional. She believes the hospital is her home and her fellow patients are her neighbors. And still, no one understands how she escaped from her locked cell. They proceed to check Rachel's room. Teddy searches carefully, and under a loose floorboard, he finds a small, cryptic note. The Law of 4. Who is 67? Confused, Teddy asks to see all the staff and patient profiles, but Cawley hesitates to share them. Later, the marshals join the warden in the search outside. The warden insists Rachel couldn't have swum away or entered the caves. The cliffs are poisonous and deadly. Back inside, Teddy and Chuck begin interviewing the staff. One orderly, Glenn, admits that Rachel vanished while he stepped away for just a minute. A nurse tells Teddy that Rachel attended a group therapy session led by Dr. Sheehan. But when Teddy asks to meet him, Cawley says Sheehan is on vacation. They try to call him, but the storm cuts off all communication. Frustrated, they head to Dr. Cawley's home, which is surprisingly elegant and refined compared to the grim hospital. There they meet another doctor, Dr. Naring, Cawley's colleague. As they talk, Teddy keeps spacing out. Flashes of snow and blood haunt his vision. Dr. Naring tells Teddy that men like him, violent men, are their specialty. Teddy recalls his time in the army, massacres, corpses frozen in snow. He admits it didn't feel like war. It felt like murder. When Teddy demands access to the hospital files, Dr. Naring refuses. Teddy angrily says they'll take the ferry back in the morning. The doctors exchange an amused glance and simply smile. That night, Teddy dreams of his wife again. She tells him Rachel never left. He hugs her, but suddenly blood pours from her head. It begins raining ashes, and her body turns to dust in his arms. Teddy wakes up drenched in sweat. The storm has gotten worse. The roof is leaking, and there's no way off the island. They're trapped, and the mystery deepens. The next morning, the marshals continue their investigation. They ask Dr. Cawley for permission to interview the patients who were part of Rachel's therapy group. One by one, they speak with the patients. First is Mr. Breen, who once slashed a nurse's face. Teddy becomes frustrated when Breen refuses to cooperate, furiously scratching his pencil against the paper. Next, they speak to Mrs. Kearns, who seems far more normal. She answers calmly, but when she asks Chuck for a glass of water, Teddy notices something strange. While pretending to drink, she slips a note into Teddy's notebook. Before the session ends, Teddy asks about a patient called Andrew Laetis, but Mrs. Karen got nervous and says she had never heard this name before. After the session, Teddy reads the note Mrs. Karen wrote. It says only one chilling word: run. Chuck asks Teddy who Andrew Laetis is, since Teddy mentioned his name to several patients. Teddy explains that Andrew was the maintenance man in his apartment building, the one who started the fire that killed his wife. He also burned down a school and was eventually committed to Shutter Island. The 2 men head toward a nearby cemetery. Teddy shows Chuck the note from Mrs. Kearns again. Something feels deeply wrong about this place. As the storm intensifies, they find shelter in a small cabin in the woods. Inside, Teddy opens up about his past, his time in the war, the mountains of frozen corpses. He remembers his unit slaughtering surrendering soldiers, and he's still haunted by it. He tells Chuck he's convinced Shutter Island is conducting human experiments, using psychotropic drugs to manipulate minds. Chuck isn't sure what to believe. He warns Teddy that maybe they were brought here for a reason, that the island wanted him to come. Teddy insists they'll expose the truth and escape this place. That night, they sneak into a secret meeting between the doctors. Dr. Cawley announces that Rachel Solando has been found. The marshals rush to see her. Rachel, confused and trembling, claims she just made breakfast for her kids, as if nothing ever happened. Then suddenly, she hugs Teddy, sobbing, asking who he is and begging him to bury her. After the strange encounter, they return to Cawley's house. Teddy looks pale and weak, his head pounding. Cawley gives him pills to ease the pain and lets him rest. As Teddy lies down, he sees another flash, a high-ranking officer watching him, and memories of war flood back. He sees Andrew Lettuce sitting calmly on a couch, and then the horrifying vision of Rachel with her dead children. He lifts one of the kids into his arms and places the body in the lake. The water turns red. Teddy wakes up again, shaken and drenched in sweat. In his next dream, his wife appears once more, whispering that Andrew is still alive. He jolts awake, back in reality. Outside, chaos has erupted. Patients are screaming, guards are running. In the confusion, Teddy and Chuck sneak into Ward C, hoping to find Andrew Lettuce. Inside Ward C, the atmosphere is dark and suffocating. They meet an officer who says several prisoners escaped during the storm. As Teddy moves through the corridor, he suddenly hears whispers. Someone calling the name Lettuce. Out of nowhere, a bald inmate attacks him from behind, choking him. Teddy fights back and nearly strangles the man to death before guards arrive. As the chaos settles, Teddy meets another prisoner, George Noyce, who claims to know him. George says he's locked up because of Teddy's investigation. He warns him not to trust Chuck, saying, "You can't kill Lettuce and uncover the truth at the same time." Then George adds, "You have to let her go." Teddy insists Lettuce was transferred somewhere else. He leaves Ward C and finds Chuck again. Chuck says they've found Lettuce's intake form, proof he was here. But Teddy's beginning to doubt everything, even his partner. Determined to find answers, he decides to go to the lighthouse, where he believes the doctors are performing mind experiments. But as he reaches the cliffs, Chuck suddenly disappears. Teddy looks down and sees what looks like a body lying on the rocks below. He climbs down, but when he gets there, the body is gone. Rats scatter across the rocks. In the distance, he spots a faint light flickering inside a cave. He crawls toward it and finds a woman sitting by a fire, holding a knife. It's the real Rachel Solando. She tells Teddy that she's not a patient. She was a doctor here. She explains that she uncovered shipments of drugs used for mind control experiments, and when she questioned them, they declared her insane. She warns Teddy that they're using his trauma against him, feeding him drugs in his food, coffee, and pills to make him doubt his own mind. She says they perform brain surgeries in the lighthouse to turn people into obedient puppets. Rachel urges him to escape before it's too late. Teddy leaves the cave, determined to expose the truth, but he's found by guards and taken back to the hospital. When he asks about Chuck, Dr. Cawley tells him that he arrived alone. Teddy is stunned. What is happening? As Teddy wanders the halls in confusion, he confronts Dr. Naring, grabs a syringe from him, and threatens him for answers. Naring insists that Teddy is sick, that he's losing his mind. Teddy injects him and runs off, his mind breaking apart piece by piece. He steals a car, lights it on fire, and sees visions of his wife and children in the flames. His wife whispers that he must leave the island, but Teddy is convinced Chuck is in the lighthouse. He swims through the crashing waves, fights his way inside, and climbs to the top. There he finds Dr. Cawley sitting calmly, waiting for him. Cawley asks about his hallucinations. Teddy tells him everything, about Rachel, about the experiments. But Cawley shakes his head. He tells Teddy none of it is real. Cawley reveals a shocking truth. Teddy has been a patient here for 2 years. His real name is Andrew Lettuce. He's not an investigator. He's the most dangerous patient at Ashcliff. The people he's been chasing, Rachel, Lettuce, Sheehan, were all pieces of his own imagination. Chuck walks in, dressed as a doctor. Teddy, shocked, demands to know who he really is. Chuck calmly replies, "I'm Dr. Sheehan, your psychiatrist." Cawley explains that they allowed Andrew to play out his fantasy one last time, hoping he would come back to reality. He shows Andrew the intake form, proving everything. He even points out that the names Rachel Solando and Andrew Lettuce are anagrams of each other. Then Cawley delivers the final blow. Andrew's wife, Dolores, drowned their 3 children in the lake. She was Rachel Solando, and Andrew killed her after discovering what she'd done. We see the truth unfold. Andrew returns home to find his wife sitting by the lake, soaked and dazed. When he asks where their kids are, he finds their lifeless bodies floating in the water. In agony, Andrew carries them to the shore, lays them side by side, and screams in grief. Dolores whispers that she loved him, but that there was something wrong with her mind. Then she begs him to set her free. Andrew raises his gun and shoots her. Back in the present, Andrew finally admits what he did. He confesses that he created the persona of Teddy Daniels to escape the pain. Dr. Colley says this confession means he's finally accepted reality, but warns that if he slips back into delusion, they'll have no choice but to lobotomize him. The next morning, Andrew appears calm, seemingly sane. Dr. Sheehan sits beside him, hopeful that the treatment has worked. But then, Andrew looks at him and calls him Chuck again. In that moment, it's clear. He slipped back into his delusion. Dr. Sheehan quietly signals to Dr. Colley that Andrew has relapsed. The warden approaches to take Andrew away for a lobotomy. Before leaving, Andrew turns to Dr. Sheehan and says softly, "Which would be worse, to live as a monster or die as a good man?" Those haunting final words make Sheehan freezes, realizing that Andrew didn't relapse. He just chose to die as the man he once was. Guards lead Andrew away toward the lighthouse, and the screen fades to black. The movie ends, leaving us questioning everything we just saw. If you enjoyed this recap of Shutter Island, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to catch all our upcoming movie summaries. See you soon.